right, let's get started. Now it's 2:03 p.m. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to lesson 3 of Ultimate Eating Persuasion. So I hope you have been trying out all those techniques that I shared with you over the last weekend, the 2 lessons. And if you have any feedback or any questions regarding those techniques that you have tried out, do feel free to type in the chat box so that, I will try to help you clear all those doubts or queries or why it works, why it never works, things like that. Okay, so let me get to my slides. Okay, I'll skip this. Now we have covered all the way up to module 6. Okay, module 6, that means we have covered the first 2 rows. The first 2 rows, this row here and this row here. So today we will complete the remaining 3 modules, which is module 7, 8, and 9. Module 7 is pattern interrupt. Pattern interrupt actually is very, very useful if you are stuck. Okay, you are stuck in a conversation or in a persuasion or negotiation or discussion, whatever. If you think you're stuck, you can use pattern interrupt. That's number 1, to break the momentum. Number 2, if you find that the audience, okay, keep insisting on his kind of belief or the way that he's doing or thinking, you may want to interrupt his pattern. All right, and then you come out to take the lead. So pattern interrupt is useful in that sense. You can apply to your own, you can apply to the audience. Okay, then we move on to module 8, suggestibility test. Now, this is just one quick simple test, a quick simple module to talk about suggestibility. Now, some of us are very suggestible. Okay, what do I mean by suggestible is that someone out there that could be, I'm not sure whether you know of someone that you know who easily get influenced by people. That's number 1, or who believe easily into what people say. Those kind of people, I call them as suggestible. That means you can just throw an idea to them, they will take it on. Okay, for example, they say that, maybe you tell them that, hey, by drinking this drink, you buy this drink, you have very good complexion. They can be easily influenced by you and they'll go and buy. Okay, so this is what I call suggestible. So what about suggestible that I want to talk about? I will cover that in module 8. Now in module 9, which is the last part, is you can learn all the things about persuading others. Now, if you don't persuade yourself, uh, you are not going to achieve much success, because if you don't believe in yourself, how can you go on to persuade others? So that's why I reserve the last part about yourself. Okay, I reserve it for yourself. It means how can you influence back yourself, persuade yourself, say you can do it, you are capable enough, you are competent enough, you can do it. Okay, so remember, last week I talked about the 3 component of persuasion. Number 1 is the persuader himself or herself, and 2 important characteristics of a persuader in order to have a very good and successful persuasion is, number 1, credibility, and number 2, reputation. Okay, so if you have none so far, then you actually need this module 9 to come in to help convince yourself, saying that you can do it. You have that capability, you have that credibility. All right, so we'll talk about more about that in module 9, the last module for today or for the entire program. Okay, so with that, are you all ready to get started? Type a yes in the chat box if you are. Okay, let's move on, talk about module 7. Thank you, Alan. Pattern interrupt. Now, where does this pattern interrupt fit in the overall scheme of persuasion? It is this part here, the content part. All right, content part. Because sometimes you have already in hand the meat and potato, what you want to deliver, and you already know how to cook them, and you're preparing to deliver them. But sometimes the situation doesn't allow you to deliver. Why? Because maybe the audience is just babbling all the way, just talking and talking and talking, and never give you the chance to even to deliver what you need to deliver. So therefore, this pattern interrupt will comes in very, very useful. or you get stuck in a conversation, just go round and round and round. Sometimes you just want to break the momentum. Yes, then pattern interrupt will come in very useful as well. So if you talk about the four key principles of I Ching persuasion, pattern interrupt comes in this portion here. Know the law. Okay, so one of the thing is the momentum thing. Okay, so if you find that you don't have that momentum in carrying on what you're about to do, then go for pattern interrupt. So what can we use pattern interrupt for? You can use it to break your own patterns, or you can use it to break other people's pattern. Now, note the keyword I use here. I use the word patterns. Let's talk a little bit about patterns before we go into the pattern interrupt itself. Can I ask, just type in the chat box, any one of you has, you think you have a bedtime routine? That means before you go to bed, there's always certain activities that you will do without fail before going up to the bed and sleep. Do you have? If you have, you want to share with the class, what are those routine that you have, you think you have? Or you don't have, also type don't have. If you think you don't have, which one? For me, I have my own routine, like, brushing teeth, all these things, these are routines that I will do every night before going up to the bed. And also, last but not least, doing some energy cleansing. That will be my routine that I will do. Okay, so you may have yours. If you think you don't have, you may want to look more closely. Maybe you want to do a journal on what you do before you go up to the bed every night. You find that there is a similar pattern occurring every night. Okay, so if you start looking at it more closely, some activities may keep repeating across the days, right? So we call that patterns. Now, everyone lives in patterns, believe me, okay? Everyone lives in pattern. So that's why I mentioned, for me, I know I have my own routine: brush the teeth, floss the teeth, or gargle with the mouthwash, wash the face, and what else? You may have your own unique activities. I have my own unique activities. Like I mentioned just now, I do energy cleansing. Okay, so that will be my routine. Okay, so all humans have patterns that they tend to follow every now and then. Sleep routine is just one of the pattern that you have throughout the day. You may have a daily pattern, you may have a morning pattern, you may have a bedtime pattern. What else? Okay, study pattern, a weekly pattern, a monthly pattern. We call that patterns. And being human, we live through patterns. Basically, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So when a person is doing something, he expects a coherent flow of a logical chain of thoughts, words, and ideas. Same with conversation. Same with conversation. Same with writing. You see, everybody's writing style is different. Talking style is different because they have a, a pattern that they want to follow every time they choose to write or they choose to talk. So same with everyone. Your boss may have one, your spouse may have one, your children may have his own kind of pattern. And that kind of pattern is actually based on his own experience, right? Based on his own experience, he established his own coherent flow that chain up all those thoughts, words, and ideas in a way that he can convey better. Okay, so let me briefly define what is a pattern. Now, a pattern is any sort of a process that leads to a certain outcome. Okay, I repeat this. A pattern is any sort of process. So it's a process that leads to a certain predictable outcome. Okay. Now, so then again, we noted that most people strive to operate within the what do you call that? Uh, the comfort zone. Okay, so I'm sure you have your own comfort zone. I'm sure because you want to stay in the comfort zone, you tend to establish certain patterns. For example, if let's say you're having a work from home and you know that to have a cozy environment, you need a cup of coffee beside you. So that is your pattern. Or you need a morning brew of coffee. Same, is a pattern. Yeah. So let me share one example here. Now, for example, you get a call from an unknown caller. Okay, nowadays it's very common now. You have a call, unknown caller, and what do you do? Let me ask you this. Type in the chat box. Just share with us what would you do if you receive a call from an unknown caller. It is not a number that you know, not a number that you're familiar with, and in your phone book there's no such number also. So what would you do if you receive such a call? Pepe say ignore. Thank you, Pepe. You ignore. Ignore means you just put one side. Don't bother to pick it up. Okay, so Pepe, since you say ignore, can I ask further, why do you do what you do? Pui Ling says, see whether start with 65. Okay, thank you, Pui Ling. Pui Ling will straight away, her pattern is to check got 65 or not. Right? Alan say, I will just pick up and be vigilant. Okay, so you see, every one of you, your pattern is different in handling the same situation. And that same situation is an unknown caller, unknown number. So let me repeat up. Pepe say ignore. Pui Ling says check whether got 65 or not. Alan say picked up and but be vigilant. Fiona say will not answer cause not familiar. See, all of you have your own set of pattern that you're comfortable with to deal with a certain situation. Now, my question is, why do you do what you do? Pepe say usually won't receive such call, but when have such call, USA starts with 65, usually starts with 65, so ignore. Okay, why ignore? Check for scam. Okay, good. Check for scam. So now the the thinking behind is I ignore or I check for 65 or I answer but be vigilant is because you're scared of scam. Okay, you're scared of scam because of experiences, because of all those news from the Facebook, of all other people sharing that they got scammed because they receive unknown numbers call. Now it could be from your bank, talking about your bank loan, or it could be maybe an headhunter trying to get you offer you a job. Then how? Then how? You're going to miss it if you don't answer it, right? So doesn't matter. I'm not saying right or wrong to answer a number from an unknown number. But what I'm trying to say is that everyone has his own pattern in dealing with a situation. And everyone's pattern can be slightly different. Okay. So when you try to persuade someone to answer a call, sometimes you need to know that person's pattern. Same thing with any persuasion setting. All right. So I'm not saying right or wrong, okay, but this is just your own pattern that you feel comfortable with in dealing with call from unknown number. That's about it. Okay, so this is a pattern designed to avoid scam calls or uncomfortable conversation. Now, okay, later on I'll bring on more examples, but for now, that's it. Okay, so talk more about patterns regarding the unknown caller one. The first few time, okay, if you can recall the very first time you have your phone and you have an unknown caller, you may be putting in a lot of thoughts and deliberation into your action. Am I right to say that? If you can recall your very, very, very first time ignoring an unknown caller call, did you feel that you're putting in a lot of thoughts and deliberation? Should I pick up or should I not pick up or should I pick up? Did you? Do you have this kind of feeling before? After a while, after doing it few more times, okay, Pui Ling say, yup, thank you very much for sharing your feeling. It is like that. You are not alone. Everyone goes through the same process. Okay, but after a few more times, this become an habit. And after that, this habit becomes a pattern. Okay, so after a while, you find that whenever a phone comes in and it's an unknown number, straight away, automatically, you ignore it. Now, if you can recall what I said last week, what do we call this? What do we call this? There's two types of decision making. The very first time you decide not to answer, What decision-making process do we call that? But once it become a habit and become a pattern, okay, and you decide not to pick up the call, what is that decision-making process called? Can anybody remember? I talked about that last week. The very first time that you're faced with an unknown caller, okay, you will do a conscious decision taking, okay, a conscious decision making process, and this is called you're using the central processing, all right, central processing to decide consciously whether you should pick up or you should not pick up. Okay, so that's why I say central processing, because you take conscious mind to go and decide, you tend to be in a dilemma. Should I? Should not I? Should I? Should not I? And therefore, sometimes you just okay lah. What if it is a headhunter trying to get me a better offer? Something like that. Then you answer. Now, after a while, it become a habit, and this habit become a pattern. Straight away, you bypass the central processing, and straight away, because it's a pattern now, you go for peripheral processing. Without much thinking, the moment you see an unknown number, straight away your decision is to ignore. Okay, is to ignore. So the moment we know how the audience peripheral processing is working and what are those SOP, for example, this is one of the SOP you're talking about, unknown number, ignore. This is the SOP, and it's stuck somewhere in the brain, in the mind. Okay, and with a similar situation comes out, straight away the mind will straight away say, okay, this situation call for peripheral processing, and straight away the decision come out, you say ignore. So that makes persuasion much easier if you know what are those SOP in the audience. Okay, remember I talked about last week. I also shared the example about going overseas, going to the factory outlet to buy a branded bags, a Prada versus a Panda. Okay, even though the Prada bag is so much more expensive than the Panda, so it's part of the peripheral processing. Okay, so come back. Certain things, parts of. So I'm trying to tie it back to strict learning. Yeah. So as processing. Now, some of these patterns are helpful. Unfortunately, some are not. Okay, some are not. Right. So, for example, that's not talking about the unknown number one. What if it is a friend or a family member in distress outside using a public phone or using a stranger's phone to call you for help? You get my point? And because of your peripheral processing, you say that whenever there's an unknown number, you ignore. But these are exceptions. I'm saying no right, no wrong in what you're trying to do. So, but for example, Alan mentioned about you still answer, but be vigilant. so perhaps Alan is trying to cover all angles. Okay, by doing what he's doing. I will just pick up and be vigilant. Okay, just in case it's emergency, then at least you are there to handle it. Yeah. Like I say, there's no right, no wrong answer to your patterns. But I'm just saying that certain patterns are helpful to you, certain patterns are not. Now, what are those such unobservable patterns? It could be a certain word. In Chinese, it's called 口头禅. Okay, a certain word. Some people will always say, maybe you can help me out here. What are those certain words that people that you know might be keep saying? For example, I know of someone who always scold something like 他妈的, something like this. Okay, or Alan say but. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, but. Right. So for me, I also know I have certain unobserved patterns. Like for example, I tend to say okay. After a while, my okay will come out. After a while, my okay will come out. Whether I need it or don't need it, my okay will still come out. So I have my own unobserved patterns, which I didn't really realize until I watched back all my teaching videos. Then I thought, hey, how can I keep on saying okay, 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 okay? no right, no wrong lah. But then, if it doesn't seem that professional if I keep saying okay, 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 right? So if I want to improve on my teaching, then I need to have a pattern interrupt. I need to be consciously trying to break that part about keep saying okay, okay, okay. So how about you? Okay, how about you? Or a certain gesture. Okay, a certain gesture. Somebody may have certain gesture, right? So yeah, it keeps showing up. Or some may have the mouth go one side one, or the eyes always look elsewhere to the right, to the left. So all these are certain gesture or certain behavior. Okay, a certain behavior like to maybe touch the ears or rub the nose. All these are certain behavior, and some of these behavior are uncontrollable. They not say uncontrollable. You can control after a while, but then involuntarily you are doing it without you knowing it. That's like your eyeball movement, okay, that we talked about last week, or a certain habit, or a certain unconscious reaction. What else can you think of? Maybe you can think of your own set of patterns. Like say, I know my own patterns. I keep saying okay, okay, okay. What else? How about yours? Or do you know someone, maybe your boss, you have certain patterns, or maybe your kids have certain patterns, or your spouse have certain patterns, right? For example, when like for example, my son, when we have a conversation, a simple informal conversation, whenever he say, I don't know lah, I don't know lah, meaning, say, stop talking about this. To me, the message is very clear. The moment you say, I don't know lah, okay, to me, the message is very clear. Stop talking about it, then I will change topic already. Right? So these are certain patterns that you may want to observe that is conveying a certain set of information. Pepe says showing the tongue. Thank you very much. So note that. Okay, note that if you see a certain pattern showing up in someone else, note that what does that mean? Is it telling a lie? Or is it feeling guilty? That's why he's doing that kind of action. Everyone has a different set of patterns. Only they feel comfortable with, yeah? Okay, give an example. Pepe say, what does showing the tongue means? Any idea? It could be telling a quick lie that he don't believe in or she don't believe in. But depending, like I say, different people create a different set of patterns for different reasons that they feel comfortable with. All right. So by telling you that showing the tongue could be telling a quick lie that he don't believe in, it could be my own interpretation based on my experiences with some other people. It may not be a universal interpretation. Is that okay, Pepe? So you need to find out, have more conversation with that person, and every time that pattern shows up, what is it tied to? What kind of situation? What kind of message is coming out? Is that okay? Right. Thank you very much, Pepe. Okay. So for example, John and his wife, not their real names, John and his wife can't seem to have a good conversation and would always end up in heated argument. This is a collective pattern. I call this a collective pattern. That means husband and wife cannot sit down and have a good talk. It's an observable pattern. Why I say that is every time they sit down and talk, it will end up within 15 minutes, end up in quarrel. Okay, within 15 minutes, end on quarrel. This is 包家 one. So practically, they don't talk. They rather don't talk because they know they talk, fire is going to come out. Sparks is going to come out. Okay. So after further analysis, it was found that John, was fond of bringing up old stuff. And this is just his pattern. Every time sit down, talk, 不到2分钟、3分钟 John will start to bring up old stuff lah. Say last year you keep doing this which I'm not happy with, something like this. Straight away, the wife will go into defensive mode and then start to raise the voice, quarrel, and then they have to end their conversation abruptly. So whenever this pattern shows up, this pattern meaning John fond of bringing up old things, his wife would flare up and the conversation end up, like I mentioned just now, in a heated argument and sometimes a fight. So to the wife also got reflexive pattern, also a pattern which I call it reflexive pattern. Why? Because somehow the wife already expected when they sit down to talk, her husband will bring up old stuff, And the moment when you bring out old stuff, it trigger her what do you call that, her reaction, which is to be in defensive or to flare up and say, you lie there, you know, again, you come again, you know, you bring out all those stuff for what? Pitch already. Okay. And then argument. And then after that, heated argument. So if let's say you were John or the wife and you want to improve the situation, then you need some pattern interrupt. You know, this pattern will keep on occurring the moment they sit down each time. What you need to do is to break up this pattern. Anybody has any good idea how to break it up? This kind of pattern. Okay, so like I mentioned, if you have patterns of which you were previously unaware of, or you were aware but did not change them, okay, so now is the time to change them, and pattern interrupt is going to help with that. So let's say John and the wife, is there any way we can help them? Or if let's say they know persuasion, one of them know the persuasion, do you think they can use persuasion pattern interrupt to try to improve things between them? What do you think? Type in the chat box. Okay, so if you have comments, feel free to type in the chat box. So if you're having hard time persuading people, it may not be about John and the wife. It could be sometimes that you're trying to persuade your boss to do certain things. You're trying to persuade your son or the daughter to do certain things, but then you feel that you're having a hard time persuading people. It's because you keep using the same pattern and the other party keep using the same reflexive pattern. So therefore, you know, you always end up cannot get what you want them to do the way you want them to do. Okay, so Pepe say if at home, wife to go and pour water for hubby. If outside, wife move away temporarily to do other tasks. Okay, so that's one way to break the pattern. The other way, Puiling say, is it a good idea to point out this pattern to people that you're close with? Yes. Yes. Okay, so if let's say you are generally trying to help them or they seek your help to help them come together, it is a good thing to what call that, to bring this up, saying that can you see what you're doing? After that, talk to the wife, can you see what you're doing in return? You know, sometimes they don't know what they are doing. This is just their pattern that they're comfortable with, and it is their own trigger mechanism. Remember the peripheral processing? Once certain SOP has been hit, it will bring up that list of activities to be done automatically, subconsciously. So if you can point to them, say, see, you're doing this again. See, you're doing that again. We for all you know, you may be creating a 1 degree shift for them. You say, oh yeah, maybe the husband who are willing to try to put in effort to salvage the relationship say, oh yeah, again I bring up old stuff. Who knows? It may help. Who knows? Okay. Right. So is that okay, Puiling? If they're asking for your help, it might be good to point out certain things that they did not even realize they're doing it. Pepe say, but doesn't help with colleagues. Of course, if you're being asked to help them out, lah. Okay, but if they didn't ask for your help, you know, it's very hard to come in because they will ignore you. Okay, because they ignore. That's why I say, I understand, but what if they ignore, right? If they are willing to salvage the relationship, they will be appreciative of what you have pointed out to them. Okay, but if they just want to put their point across, whatever you say and do will not help. Okay, will not help. They have to, because you are a third party of the situation. You're a third party of the situation. They don't need your help unless they ask you for help. Okay. Pepe say not asking for help, but talking about work. Talking about work can't talk. Okay, so are you one of the party that have this problem with the what do you call that? With the other person? For example, you could be John, and then your colleague could be the wife. Are you talking about this way, or are you talking about in terms of you are the third party trying to go in to help? know the difference. Are you part of the party or are you an external party trying to go in and help? Okay, John and wife. Now, if that is the case, you may want to find out what is your pattern first. Work on yourself first. Because you know the other party is doing a reflexive pattern. The reflexive pattern means based on your trigger, then they will trigger their own action. Okay, so if your own pattern don't comes out, he or she does not have a corresponding reflexive pattern to bring up also. So that is one way you may want to break your own patterns first before thinking about breaking the other party's pattern. That's why I say pattern interrupt works both ways. One is to break your own pattern. The other way is to break the audience pattern. Let's talk about your own pattern first. The moment you know that you bring out old stuff, for example, old stuff. I remember last year, when we did this, we ran into trouble. Remember that this is, you say it's okay, but we did it your way, something like that. So when you bring out old stuff, every time you do that, it's going to lead yourself into heated argument. Then you may want to stop using that pattern anymore. Is that okay, Pei Pei? Break your own pattern first before we're talking about break other people's pattern. First sentence already. Remember, I talked about audience being the credible and the reputation. Okay, audience and the reputation. When you say first sentence already, the party not keen, means they sort of see you know up lah. Sorry, I put it that way lah. I mean, let me make it clear to you lah. Okay, because first sentence already people are not keen, meaning number one, either you don't have the credibility or you don't have a reputation for that subject matter. Perceived credibility, not the actual credibility, but perceived credibility and perceived reputation, and engaging them. Remember, there are three components I talk about. The first one is persuaded, which is about you per se. If you have the credibility, you have the reputation, and if you know how to engage them, you are there. Okay, you are there. All right. Now it's the same thing. Let me bring up one example. I was surprised that one of a cold call started up like this. A cold call. You always receive cold call, right? Sometimes I do answer plus 65 call. Sometimes. So usually when a salesman give you a cold call, when you pick up and say hello, they will blah 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 until you say, hey, wait, what are you trying to sell me? Now someone, I was very surprised. Okay, one salesman, when I say hello, he give me a pattern interrupt until I was like, I don't know how to answer for the first few seconds. Okay, and he caught my attention. Now what he say, when I say hello, he say, hello, I'm John. This is a cold call. Do you want to hang up? Okay, this is what he say. This is his opening statement. I was like, very unusual. Okay, very unusual opening. All right. And I also feel a bit paiseh to say, okay, I'll hang up now. All right. So I say, okay, what is it about? All right. So my reply, my reflexive pattern say, what is it about? So can you see he did something very, very different from the rest of the cold call salesman? He straight away 空城计,空城计 means the open castle, saying that this is a cold call. Do you want to hang up? Better interrupt. I thought he used it very carefully because he used it very effectively because he caught my attention and he bought my first few seconds. Means I asked him in return, say, what is it about? And he have a chance to present to me because I gave him the permission to talk about it. Can you see how sometimes when you do cold call, the first thing is they will reject you. Okay, so credibility, reputation, and the engagement part. Is that okay with you, Pei Pei? So you may want to think about how to engage them, which I've shown you several tools already. And one of it is pattern interrupt. Like I shared with you, the salesman one, very superb. Hui Ling said, if the other party don't view the person as credible at all, so do we stop persuading? If it doesn't matter to you, you can stop persuading. Okay, if the outcome doesn't matter to you, all right, you can stop persuading. But if, let's say, no choice, you have to do it. Remember, this is all about perceived credibility. Okay, perceived credibility. For example, you may say, boss want me to talk to you about this. Okay, boss want me to talk to you about this. It's not I want to talk to you, it's boss want me to talk to you about this. So how does it feel, Pui Ling? And everyone else, if I say this to you, boss want me to talk to you about this. How do you feel? Would you give me the first few seconds? Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, so you see, it's about the perceived credibility, reputation, and the engagement, right? If let's say the audience is very hostile to you, and you say I want to talk to you about this, straight away he will tell you no time. You get my point? So you got to do something different to engage. Everybody clear about this? So now that I know this audience is very hostile to me, and whatever I say first sentence, most likely he will reject. He will say no time, maybe next, or maybe I need to rush this report now, blah, 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 blah. Okay. So I'll have to go and change my pattern. And for example, just now my example is boss want me to talk to you about this. Next year, if I run this program again, I may want to add in a new module, which is the title I'm thinking about it is how to handle resistance. Would that be good for you? How to handle resistance? Okay. So for example, if I may say, boss want me to talk to you about this, he may still come back with a resistance. Okay. And his resistance is, oh, I'm rushing out a report for boss right now. He used back a boss to resist my boss. All right. Okay. You get my point? So how do you handle that? How do you handle that? Remember, let me repeat the situation. I go to audience, I say, boss want me to talk to you about this. Then the audience may reply, say, sorry, boss want me to rush out this for him. What do you do? Pepe say, arrange a time, suggest today 3 p.m. Okay. Okay. Now, when you want to suggest a good point, Pepe, you provide alternative. Now, can I just add on to your suggestion, Pepe? Instead of suggesting today 3 p.m., give him or her a choice. Make him feel like he's controlling the situation. He's making the decision. All right. So instead of can I suggest 3 p.m. today, you may want to tweak a little bit, give him the power to decide. Say, I understand. Which timing works better for you? 3 p.m. or 5 p.m. Remember, I think in lesson one, I talk about giving options like this. What will the options do for people like the audience, a very hostile audience? We straight away limit the thinking of the audience to say 3 p.m. or 5 p.m. You get my point? Because if you say today 3 p.m., say cannot finish. Then you say 4 p.m. cannot, 5 p.m. cannot. All right, so you give him a choice that will works 80 to 90% of the time. Get my point, everyone? Pay. Okay, so if you may want to improve your alternative offering, instead of giving one timing, give two timing. Which timing works better for you? Okay, can? All right, so I like this kind of questioning. So do comes in with your scenario so that we can discuss as a class how to best handle them. So Pepe say, can we have a workshop? Can you have a workshop for us so we don't need to wait till next year? Let me think about it because workshop up to next year is fully packed already. So let me think about it. In email, one time is easier. Okay, I understand. But it works the same. Options works the same whether it is verbal or written. When I say written, it could be email or it could be texting. Once you say 3 p.m. today, the reply say cannot, 1 yuan. Okay, cannot 1 yuan. Yeah, in a group, I agree. If it's in a group, I agree that it could be a problem if you offer options. Okay, that I agree. But if it's a one-to-one giving option, based on my experience, 80 to 90% of the time, you can settle there and then. Is that okay? Right? Thanks for qualifying this one in the group. Okay, let me move on. So I just want you to take note of this. If you keep executing the same pattern, you will keep getting what you're getting. That means you keep getting the same result. Just like John and the wife. Just like you and the hostile audience. Okay, if you use the same pattern, they will bring out the same pattern also. And that one is the reacting pattern. All right. So you want to do a pattern interrupt. That means change the way until they say, "Hey, today something new leh. I don't have a SOP for that pattern leh." Okay, you get my point. What we want is to go and capture their 出其不意. Okay, 出其不意 means attack them when they least expected it. Right. So this is called pattern interrupt. This is pattern interrupt yourself to them. Okay. Now, pattern interrupt is interrupting a pattern, so to speak. I think I put it 太明显. Pattern interrupt means interrupting a pattern. Basically, remember this. If it's not useful to you, you better interrupt the pattern. If it's useful to you, keep using the pattern. Like for example, just now Pepe mentioned about suggest today 3 p.m. Okay. This is a pattern that Pepe may be using it most of the time. So I leave it to you to decide, based on your past experience with using this pattern, how was the results? How was the result of using this pattern? Okay, so you try to think back, Pepe, okay, if you keep on using this alternative offering as suggesting today 3 p.m., what's the result like? Is it working good for you? If it's working good for you, then keep using it. If it's not working for you, a lot of the time it's not working, then you may want to tweak the pattern a little bit. Okay, pattern interrupt do not have to be dramatic. A simple change is enough to interrupt the pattern and move you in a new direction. That's why, based on my experience, I'm suggesting if it's a one-to-one thing, you offer a option. Not too many, just A or B will do, yin or yang will do. That will limit them, okay, and come to a very fast decision making. Is that okay? So a simple shift, a 1 degree shift will do. You see a difference in the yield results. Yeah. So applying the techniques that you have learned so far in this program, for example, the ISSNQ, the perspective system, and all those techniques that you have learned is a very good examples of pattern interrupt, because not many people know how to use them properly. But now you know. Okay, now you know. Okay. So what have we learned so far? Perspective system, I mentioned. Stocking, the mirroring part. Okay, the mirroring part. The subtle command. Remember the connectors using I agree and can I add that, the blah, 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 blah. So all these subtle command, all these could be a good pattern interrupt. That means a good departure from what you used to do that don't give you that kind of good results that you want. Then you may want to explore again, log into the portal, re-watch back the video, and pick up certain you think is you're comfortable with and you think is useful to you. You go and try it out. And once it works for you, keep on improving. Okay, keep on improving, and that become your own sets of working pattern. Working pattern, duplicable pattern, and effective pattern. This is what we want. No need to know too many. Okay, that's one of few that can help you open new doors can already. Okay. How many of you have tried these few patterns? Either a perspective system, or the mirroring part, the stocking part, or the subtle commands, or the ISSNQ. How many have you done it? Have done it? Have tried it last week? I want to share your experience. Or if you have, but you are not ready to share experience, just type a yes. Will do in the chat box. I've tried. Yes. Okay. Now let me go on. Right. So a slightly different version of the same concept, using patterns to persuade others. Now, that's not what I've been talking about, is to interrupt yourself. You know that the pattern you use is not yielding any good results for you, and then you better change your pattern. Okay. But right now, moving forward, I want to show you a slightly different version of the same pattern interrupt concept. But this time around is to break others people pattern. Pei Pei mentioned tried mirroring each other, both known but not successful. What do you mean by both known but not successful for the other party? Okay, so could you elaborate what do you mean by both known? Means they know what you're doing. Both know to take turn to mirror. You mean your audience know what you're doing, is it? Other class. Physical. Okay, so you try physical. Sorry, I don't quite get you. Okay, now how to interrupt other people? This pattern interrupt, if you want to interrupt other people's, okay, it works perfectly fine. Especially I use it many times. And this technique, it goes under the radar, meaning they don't know that you're using pattern interrupt. Okay, and then after that, you can drop a bomb, a nuclear bomb. Now, the whole idea of pattern interrupt other people is to do is a two-step thing. Okay, it's a two-step process. Step one, interrupt. Step two, redirect. Okay, step one, interrupt. Step two, redirect. I give an example, a quick example. Scenario: a salesman, talk on the phone, talk, non-stop. It could be over the phone, or it could be phone is easier, like you can just hang up. That one is better interrupt already. Okay. But if let's say it's face to face, a salesman, you want to buy something, generally you want to buy something, but the salesman just keep on overselling, talk non-stop, you know, how do you do a pattern interrupt? Okay, how do you usually do a pattern interrupt for such a situation? Type in the chat box. A salesman pitching non-stop, blah 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 blah, until you no window to talk what you want to say. How do you do a pattern interrupt? Puiling say, I want to buy XX product only. Okay, sometimes the salesman like tiabo, huh? You say I only want to buy XX product only, like tiabo, keep on blah 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 blah. Okay, let's take it face to face lah, physical lah, face to face. Go toilet. Thank you very much, Pepe. Okay, go toilet. Do something abruptly. Okay, do something abruptly. Hui Ling say not interested. Okay, so do something abruptly. So whether you're interested, not interested, or like Hui Ling say, I only want to buy XX product only. Okay, so what you need to do, remember I say it's a two-step process for pattern interrupt. This is what we want to interrupt because you are not getting a window to say that you want to buy XX product only. Let's take this scenario lah. You want to buy XX product only. Okay, but this salesman, wow, is so enthusiastic, like talk non-stop, trying to sell a lot of things, trying to show you he's so intelligent and what do you call that, full of knowledge about whatever he want to say lah. Alan says, sorry, I'll need to move on with another matter. Okay, sometime when you say sorry, I need to move on with the matter, then he'll come back to say, okay, but after a while, you come back to the same thing, blah 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 blah. Have you seen that kind of person before? 讲不完的. Okay, so when we say pattern interrupt, we really want to really interrupt, and I call it abrupt interruption. Okay, what we do usually is that you talk something that is outside the context of what you are talking. Okay, outside the context, that means something totally different. For example, the salesman be blah 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 blah, and you're trying to interject, say, okay, actually, I just want to buy blah 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 blah. I see, okay, I understand. Actually, I only want that blah 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 blah. Non-stop until you got no chance to say. Then 你一口气 say, hey, wait, is that UFO? Something out of context. Something out of context. Okay, or what else? Okay, so here is an example. Interrupt with an unusual comment. something out of context one. You can say your UFO, you can say, oh, is that water leaking? You know, something like that. Or is that your boss? You know, something like that, out of context one. The thing is, we really want to destabilize the other audience. The audience. We want to destabilize by using unusual comment. Why this works and why just now some of the suggestion that you mentioned say, sorry, I need to move on to another matter. Sorry, I only interested in the S product. Why unusual comment can works better than the the some of these suggestions that you have given before? Why? Why do you think? Okay, before redirect the attention, Pepe. Before redirect the attention, we want to interrupt, cut off the momentum. Okay, remember we say that all of us has patterns. Even the salesman also has his own patterns. Even the salesman is also using peripheral processing. Okay, so when you say something like, "Oh, water is leaking," or "There's a UFO," or "There's a what a bird shit on your head," maybe a bird shit on your head, okay, this is you're trying to throw a spanner that the salesman may not have a SOP yet for that thing. Pui Ling say, but to boss cannot give such a comment. Very good. Okay, I'm just saying a typical usual situation like a sales situation. Let me later on go to the boss situation. Okay. Where was I? Okay, Pui Ling, thank you for your interruption. Okay. Yeah, something unusual lah. We want to interrupt that one. After that, we want to go to redirect. After that, then we redirect. Okay, we come in, take control. Now, come in, take control. Then once you interrupt already, the salesman got no SOP to deal with that bird shit on the head. And then you say, actually, I only want these products. Where can I pay? That's it. Okay, so you interrupt first, step one, and then step two, come in with your redirection. That means redirect the attention to where you want him to focus on. So that is some simple sales situation. Okay, boss situation. Now, let's say you're in a room with the boss. You go into his room and you're chit chatting, and then the boss keep talking. Okay, what can we do to interrupt? What can we do to interrupt? Sometimes you were secretly hoping that something can happen, right? To interrupt. Am I correct to say that? Sometimes you have no chance to say your piece, and then you just, oh, these boss are so long-winded, and then just secretly hoping something could happen. For example, his phone ring. For example, someone knock on the door, want to come in. For example, his boss call him for meeting, something like that. So that will cut off the thing. Okay, Pui Ling say got another discussion to go to. Okay, so before you say got another discussion to go to, Pepe say drop your phone on the floor accidentally. Wow, 心痛. Okay, what you can do is instead of dropping the phone, you can drop your pen. Okay, instead of dropping the phone, you can drop your pen. So make sure you bring in your pen. Same thing. Pui Ling, if you think you're in a heated discussion and you think you're stuck there, you think you're on a losing ground, break the momentum. First thing first, if you think you're losing ground, always break the momentum. Okay, so always bring in a pen, which I will always do when I go into my boss room. Pen and paper. Okay, you can drop your paper, you can drop your pen, whatever. That will do an abrupt interruption. Pepe say pen no sound. Okay, then you drop whatever you want to drop, feather duster, whatever. Okay, whatever marker, anything lah. You want to drop your phone, also can lah. Can or not? Or you bring your old file, your big ring file there. You want to bring in your ring file and then you drop your ring file, also can. Anything that can cause an unusual activity. So remember this, if you think you're already stuck with the conversation, you can't even win the argument, break the momentum. No need. Once you break the momentum, then you try to redirect. Okay, redirect. So the easiest thing for me, I will always bring in my pen because my pen works for me a lot of time. Or you can bring in your ring file. Or sometimes the ring file, to open up, to take out the paper, right? You need to open up that ring, right? And then when you open up the ring, the pia, and then after that you close back, there's another pia, right? So sometimes you can do the pia pia thing also. That can be an unusual interruption also. Right? But before you do the interruption, you must know after I interrupted successfully, where do you want to redirect your boss to? You get my point? Just now about a salesman, because you want to redirect him to the XXX product. Then you know after I interrupt, I have to quickly redirect him to the I only want to buy this XX product. Pepe say clap mosquito, don't need to bring anything. Also can. Also can. Oh, but aircon room, I'm not sure whether got mosquito or not lah. Unless you say in the coffee shop, in the outdoor environment, maybe you can say there's mosquito. But office, I'm not too sure. Okay, but you can try that. Let me know next round if this clap. Have you tried clap mosquito before? So, Hui Ling, is that okay for boss context and in a heated discussion context? Okay, same thing. Even during a coaching, when I feel I'm stuck with a coaching, that means somehow I couldn't get through, I will also do a pattern interrupt. So for my case, as a coach and a coachee, how do I do pattern interrupt? Do you want to help me with that? For a coach and a coachee, I feel stuck with my coaching and I wanted to interrupt. How do I do? Thank you. I ask for a break. Okay, I ask for a break. Okay, so another way, heated discussion with boss, you can also say, boss, can you hold your thoughts? Can I go for a 5-minute pee break first? We come back and continue the discussion. You can do that also. If you have nothing to drop, okay, you may want to do that. Go for a break, come back, re-strategize, come back. By the time, I think maybe your boss also cool down already. Okay, right. So you must know before you do the pattern interrupt, you must know where you want to redirect after the interruption is successful. Okay. Now, why this works? Is because of the peripheral processing. Now, when I give you a cartoon schematic explanation, why this works. When you're having a discussion with your boss, you find that at some point during the discussion, you and your boss come to a point whereby this is the so-called comfort zone of discussion. Whether it is a heated argument, not heated argument, you are somehow locked. Locked means in the comfort zone, not say a comfort zone, in that flow zone of heated argument. Whoever can do this first, you gain the upper hand. Now that you know about this pattern interrupt, you're going to have the upper hand. Okay, you find that you're on a losing ground, straight away you do a pattern interrupt. By doing a pattern interrupt, you're actually creating a hole beneath, visually speaking, creating a hole beneath the audience, the boss. Why? Because there's no SOP to handle. The boss got no SOP to handle your clap mosquito. Okay, unless you do it so many times, he know already. Or you again, yesterday you clap mosquito, today you clap mosquito. Then he probably would have already formed an SOP to deal with your clap mosquito. If not, if it's an unusual one, he won't have a ready SOP to deal with it. And therefore, he'll be temporarily lost. Temporarily lost means lose the grounding. Okay, and once he lose the grounding, he's actually his conscious mind. Now talk about conscious mind. Subconscious got no SOP to deal. The conscious mind has to come out to take over and say, oh, what do I do next? What do I do next? Now, when the conscious mind was thinking, what do I do next? You offer a redirection. This is where most of the time, 80 to 90% of the time, he will quite listen to you, say, okay, so you want to get the XXX product. Or your boss was when you say, oh boss, perhaps we can think about this matter in another perspective. He may be more open to listen because his conscious mind don't know what to think about it. So the interruption plus the redirect, the gap cannot be too far away. Cannot be too far away until he has time to settle down, to find the own grounding, and then think back to say, okay, this is how we should continue the conversation. Is that okay, everyone? Right? So basically, this is something like 声东击西 like that. For those who have learned AOM3 from me, this is something like 声东击西. Enemy may be in a state of confusion if he's unable to cope with the sudden and unexpected changes in the circumstances. So what we want to do is to exploit the moment when he is still indecisive. So the top part here is the interruption. The bottom part here is the redirection. Is that okay, everyone? Right? Question so far? Okay, if no, let me go on to scenario 2. So let's revisit the John and the wife, Ken. Okay, so John and his wife revisited. So when John starts to bring out old stuff, what the wife can do is can drop something, for example, a spoon, and then redirect. Something like this. But of course, if the wife keep dropping the spoon, then the husband, John, will somehow come up with a SOP to deal with the drop spoon because it become a pattern. Get my point? Okay, now let's say a different scenario. Let's say two of Peter's friends were engaged in a heated conversation. Okay, heated conversation. And then how can Peter persuade them to cool down? It is the intention of Peter is to cool them down. Is not to offer suggestion, not to offer help, but it's just to cool them down. Okay, how do you think we can cool them down using pattern interrupt? Think about it. Type in the chat box. We're not trying to help. We're just trying to cool them down. That's it. That means break the momentum. Call one of the friends mobile. Thank you very much. Yes, that's one good way. Call the friends mobile. One good way. Okay, people tend to want to listen to the phone, even though they are arguing. All right, but make sure that the phone is with them or within reach. Okay, good point. Okay, another one is Peter can come up to them, tap them on the shoulders. Okay, tap them on the shoulders and ask them where they could find his car key. This is just one loose example. Again, it's unusual comment or unusual question. Or they will be taken aback. You touch us just to ask where's your car key. Suddenly lost for words. Don't know how to manage this kind of unusual situation. That's where you break the momentum. Okay, that's where you can help them to break the momentum. But you're not going to mediate the situation. You're not there to mediate. You're just helping them break the momentum, cool them down so that they can talk again or they can decide to go away. Okay. So naturally, the tension will lose momentum, both cool down and become more willing to listen. Okay. Or maybe they just want to avoid and then go away. Right. So paper suggestion is also a good one. Call the mobile of one of them. Right. So that's about it. This is what I call pattern interrupt. Pattern interrupt can be used to interrupt your own pattern if you know that your pattern is not serving you, right? Or it can be used to break the audience pattern. If you find that you're on a losing ground, for example, coach and a coachee, staff and subordinate, no, wrong, staff and boss, and then boss and subordinate. So it works most of the time. I use that. So whenever whenever going to my boss, I make sure I'll carry pen and paper so that I can have something to drop. Something like that. Okay. All right. Then again, when there's a norm, there's always an exception. Like I said, if you do certain thing many times, it becomes a known pattern. When it becomes a known pattern like clap mosquito, then the boss will detect that as a known pattern and then will register it inside the peripheral processing and then will form or develop a SOP to deal with clap mosquito. So if you really need to break the pattern, you need to come up with very unusual kind of actions or words or activities. Is that okay? Any question about pattern interrupt? If no, shall we go for a short break, a 10-minute break? I'll start the timer. So if you have questions, do feel free to type in the chat box. We'll deal with them when we are back from the break. Okay, if not, then I'll start the timer now. See you back in 10 minutes time. Okay, see you back.